Once upon a time, long, long ago, in a valley nestled beneath silver-tipped mountains, there lived a wizard named Elric. His beard wasn't just white, it shimmered like pure moonlight, and his staff glowed, pulsating with the wisdom of ages. The villagers spoke his name in hushed, awestruck tones. And why wouldn't they? He could summon gentle rain during a harsh drought and calm a raging storm with a mere flick of his hand. Yet, for all his immense power, Elric was deeply lonely. You see, magic can be a heavy burden when it's carried all alone. Then, one bright spring morning, a sharp knock echoed on the wizard's tall oak door. A young boy named Lorien stood there. His hands were calloused from hard work, his tunic was patched and worn, but his eyes burned with a fierce, unshakable determination. "Please, Master Wizard," he pleaded, bowing so low his forehead nearly touched the ground. "Teach me. I want to learn magic more than anything." Elric studied the boy for a long, quiet moment. Finally he spoke, his voice like the rustling of ancient scrolls. "Magic isn't just about flashy sparks and turning rocks into gold," he said. "It is patience, it is sacrifice, it is wisdom. Are you willing to fail 1,000 times just to master it once?" Lorien didn't even hesitate. He nodded, his gaze unwavering. And with that, the wizard took him in. The lessons were about to begin. At first, Lorien's head was filled with grand visions. He imagined himself shooting lightning from his fingertips, transforming lead into gleaming gold. But Elric's tasks were, well, far less exciting. Fetching pails of water from the well, sweeping the vast, dusty library, copying ancient complex symbols until his fingers cramped and his vision blurred. "This isn't magic," Lorien grumbled one afternoon, rubbing his sore hand. Elric, without looking up from his book, replied softly, "Every stroke of the pen, every single drop of water, is magic, Lorien, if it is done with purpose." One day, Elric presented Lorien with a simple, unlit candle. "Light it," he instructed, "without touching it." The boy closed his eyes, concentrating with all his might. He muttered every spell he had ever read, waved his arms in what he hoped were magical gestures. Nothing. The candle wick remained dark. Frustrated and exhausted, he finally threw it aside. "Magic cannot be forced," Elric said gently, picking it up. "You must listen to it. Feel it, breathe with you. Become a part of it." For weeks, Lorien tried. He sat in silence, just listening. He listened to the whisper of the wind through the pines, the low hum of the earth beneath him, the steady, rhythmic beat of his own heart. Then, one evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, something happened. The candle flickered once, twice, then burst into a small, steady flame. Lorien gasped. "I did it," he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. Elric smiled, a rare warm smile. "You did," he said. "But more importantly, you understood." Seasons turned, and with them, Lorien grew, not just older, but wiser. Cues. Learning that true magic wasn't about control. It was about harmony. But one winter, a terrible blight crept across the valley. Crops withered in the fields, the animals grew weak, and a palpable despair settled over the villagers. They rushed to Elric, their faces etched with fear, begging for his help. "This is no ordinary sickness," Elric warned, his expression grim. "It comes from the Shadow Grove. The forest itself is suffering." Lorien's heart pounded in his chest. "Let me go with you, Master," he declared. "I want to help." The wizard looked at him, his gaze piercing. "This will be dangerous. Magic can falter when fear takes hold, but perhaps it is time." Together, they journeyed into the dark forest. The trees were twisted into tormented shapes, whispering menacingly, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. At the heart of the grove, they found a blackened pool, its oily surface seeping poison into the very roots of the land. Elric raised his glowing staff, his voice booming with ancient words of power. The pool hissed and spat, but the darkness was strong, fought back. Vicious vines, sharp as daggers, lashed out, striking the old wizard and bringing him to his knees. "Master," Lorien cried out, rushing to his side. "Listen, Lorien," Elric wheezed, his breath ragged. This is your test. The forest doesn't need my power, it needs your harmony. The boy trembled. He was just an apprentice. How could he possibly succeed where his master had failed? But then he remembered the candle. He remembered the patience, the weeks of just listening. Closing his eyes, he placed his hands flat on the poisoned ground. He didn't try to command the blight to leave. Instead, he whispered to the earth, to the trees, to the roots. He whispered, "Grow, he'll live." A gentle warmth spread from his chest, down his arms, and flowed into the soil. Slowly, the black pool bubbled, then cleared. Tiny green shoots pushed their way through the muck. Flowers bloomed where rot had once reigned. The entire forest seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. Elric rose, weak but with pride shining in his eyes. "You have done what even I could not," he said, his voice filled with awe. "You are no longer just my apprentice. You are a wizard in your own right." When they returned, the village erupted in cheers. The crops flourished again, and life returned to the valley. But Lorien never boasted. He remembered sweeping floors, copying symbols, and the countless failures before that one small candle flame. He understood now. True magic wasn't found in a show of power, but in the quiet act of nurturing growth, the growth of the earth, of others, and most importantly, of oneself. Years later, when Elric grew old and finally laid down his staff for the last time, Lorien took his place in the tower. But he never called himself master. Instead, he opened his door to every curious soul who knocked, greeting them with the same warm smile he once received on a long-ago spring morning. Magic, he would tell them, is not about what you can take from the world, but what you can give back to it. And so, the valley remained a place where wonder bloomed, carried on by each new apprentice who learned that the greatest magic of all was growth. Thank you so much for joining me for this story. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more tales like this, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. It truly helps the channel grow. See you next time.